Down the agenda, so we're to section 2, approval of the agenda. 2.1, changes to agenda and approval of agenda. We do have some changes. I'll read them off real quick. Item 8.25 is comprehensive IT threat assessment plan is changed to comprehensive IT risk assessment plan at the request of Eric Mitchell, Director, MIS and IT. Item 8.26, Spring 2021 Education Plan per DOE, Order Number 2020-E0-0 or EO-07 was moved to Committee and Staff Reports, Item 7.4. This item is for information and does not require board action. And added item 8.33, appropriation of District 2 School Board capital outlay funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for wrestling mats in the amount of $7,835. So now we are down to section 3, and we have recognition that is going to be for workshop only. So 3.1 is recognition of the U.S. Department of Defense Education Activity Grant, awarding $1,500,000 to the Okaloosa County School District, presented and recommended by the superintendent. Mr. Chambers?
All right, so first of all, as you can see, when you're talking about a number that's $1.5 million, that's a big deal. And one of the things that we've tried to be aggressive with is finding grants that are out there that can help us with initiatives that we have going on from within the school district. Anytime you can have grants that help us fund that, that's even better. So I'm extremely proud of the work that Ms. Ellis, Ms. Thedford, and others have done to actively seek some of these grants, but to get a $1.5 million grant that's also in relations with the military as well. As you know, this is a big military community. I think it's a source of pride for all of us, and these ladies right here can do a much better job of explaining the intricacies of this, but very proud of the effort. $1.5 million, that's a big deal.
Thank you. We are very honored to represent today this grant award, but I have to go back to December of last year for just a moment, because this is a very long process. It's about a 6-7 month process. And while we get to represent, this is a team effort, and just to kind of go over a couple of people on the team. So the first thing we did back in December of 2019 was start meeting with schools. We met with principals and teachers to find out what the needs were, how things were going, what could we do to write, what would be best beneficial to write in this grant. We have a 2017 grant that was $1.25 million that we're in the last year of right now. So we were kind of evaluating, again, what was going really well, what do we need to move. So the teachers took time out. We met after school with teachers and administrators to do a needs assessment. Then we went, we can't do any of this, a technology grant, a big part of it, and so Eric Mitchell and the MIS team has been invaluable. Eric not only wrote us a letter of support, which carries a lot of weight in the grant review process, but they answered all of our questions, and there are many, many questions. I don't know if Eric's here today, but we appreciate Eric and the MIS team for all they do. The data, this is a research paper basically. Joe Peterson and Brian Hughes would pull data for us. And not only we would think we would know what we wanted, and then we would call Joe or Brian and they would go, well, what about, have you thought about this, or you know, what to do this? And it's like, data just went from good to great. So having their expertise to pull data was just, and there was a season where we were talking multiple times to collect the right data. Finance, Miss Rita. Where's Miss Rita? Wow. Finance team is spectacular. I don't even have words to say. I will give a shout out real quick to Jason Lulu and tell you exactly kind of how Jason and I's relationship works. So Jason is a guru in what he does, especially with federal funds. So Jason talks me through this writing process, and I'll go, okay, Jason, this is what I hear you say. And I would repeat back what he was telling me. And then, of course, part of it's right, part of it's not right, and he would correct me. And then I would go, Jason, now this is what I hear you say. And we would go back and forth. So not only is he very good at what he does in the federal funds, but he's also very patient with me and teaching me. And then there's research. You know, Stephanie is, I would say we got to tie this together, and she could get research together. She's pretty amazing at searching the web and finding the research we need to support our initiatives. So we're very excited. That's kind of a broad picture of the team. There are many, many more helping us, but those are some of the big pictures. Just to tell you just briefly about the grant, it's for secondary science and math teachers. It's actually a sequel to our 2017 grant. We're excited to talk about it. The first part is technology, where we're getting to buy more devices and get technology in the classroom. But this year's grant actually had a health science. Now, this was written before COVID. So this was due before COVID ever hit and any of that. So the idea is that we are writing this grant with using technology to engage. It's called Engage, and it helps to get students engaged in the classroom. They'll have move goals, COVID-friendly move goals, but it's embedding a CDC curriculum for healthy bodies and healthy minds. So it's kind of interesting that we got this now with secondary schools in a block schedule where they're in a class longer. We'll be using brain breaks, COVID-friendly move goals, as well as an emphasis on how diet, stress management, and sleep helps to ensure learning is done at its peak.
Ms. Ellis, that would actually
I'm
be
sorry.
good if we could bring that to the district level as well. You know, the healthy eating,
Yes.
the stress. If we
Yes.
could write that into the grant, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing about DODEA grants is while they do target military population and the data we have to represents military, anybody can participate. If they're a grant school, they had to have 10% more military population. The last thing I'm going to say before I turn it over to Stephanie to talk about the second part is it affords us a STEM technology coach for 4 years. And this position will allow us to have someone push into the classroom to help those teachers who aren't as comfortable using technology in the classroom be another set of eyes and hands to help with the technology needs in the classroom. So we're very excited about that position. That will start next year. The second part is about our web-based tutoring, and I'm going to let Stephanie talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to be expanding on our virtual tutoring program that we established in the last grant. We know that tutoring plays a big part in students' success in math and science courses. We researched ways to remotely tutor students so that teachers could support students outside a normal school day. And we had teachers' input and pilot various programs. We found that using Zoom with iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil was the best way to utilize the digital whiteboard to share the content material. At first, there was some hesitations with teachers feeling comfortable with virtually working with students, but since COVID, we have now found that teachers are virtually not only able to support students, but families as well. Several teachers have shared with us how parents are participating in tutoring sessions so they too can learn the content. We're hoping to further our virtual tutoring sessions to include open houses and open teacher office hours. As former math and science teachers, we have a passion to help our teachers. So we do what we do, which means sometimes writing grants, which is not in our wheelhouse.
Not writers.
We're not writers, but we do what we do because of them. So we're honored
Thank
to
you.
help them.
To represent them today.
Yes.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now,
That's awesome.
Stephanie, can you throw up that check real quick? So, Paul, maybe we should get a picture of that. That says $1,500,000. So, all right.
And the last thing I would just like to say on that, so that's almost $2.8 million that they've helped bring into the school district to support our teachers. And then you also notice the STEM emphasis to that as well. As you know, STEM, CTE is something that we're really focusing on. So just absolutely appreciate the efforts. Fantastic.
All right. Thank you. All right, so visitors, at this time, we do not have any visitors. Section 5, Administrative Personnel Appointments, we will have 2. 5.1, Appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month to Wright Elementary School. And 5.2, Appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month to Lewis School. And then Section 6 will be Public Comment. Members of the public desiring to address the school board, Form MIS 5241, Public Input and/or Discussion of Agenda Items. And here we are to Section 7. Committee and staff reports. 7.1, in-county travel paid for the period of October 22nd through November 20th, 2020. 7.2, State of Florida, State Board of Administration, Local Government Surplus Fund, Trust Fund. financial audit for the fiscal years ended 2030, or June 30th, 2020 and 2019. Report number 2021-054, November 2020, presented by Rita Scallon. And then 7.3, Boeing Company Grant to Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation and CTE, presented by April Branscombe. Ms. Branscombe, if you would please come forward.
And Mr. Bryant, as Ms. Branscombe comes forward, I do want to say this is another exciting grant that April's going to talk about. We also have Mr. Sanders here from Boeing, and they're going to talk a little bit as well. But this is another example of what we're trying to do CTE-wise. We had an initiative with coding to bring coding down to the elementary level and create coding from eventually kindergarten all the way to the workforce, all the way to Boeing, and have that pipeline. So this year, April, Cindy, the CTE department, they've already started training elementary teachers on coding. They've had 2 trainings so far. That we have a STEM stipend for those elementary teachers who take part in this. So completely excited, but this is also an example of the community, the community partnering with the school district to help us with the initiatives that we have. So I could not be more thankful to Boeing, to Mr. Sanders. He's a huge supporter. He supported us last year as well in Boeing. So we just appreciate that relationship immensely. So thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me here today to celebrate and honor the partnership with Boeing and Okaloosa Public Schools. I'm Hank Sanders, the Director of Special Operations Forces for Boeing and the Senior Executive at Boeing Fort Walton Beach. At Boeing, the opportunities ahead of us are boundless. We design and build products and services that revolutionize air travel, defense capabilities, and space exploration. As a global company, we push limits, solve problems, and share discoveries. To accomplish this, we're focused on building towards a future in which all students have access to high-quality, real-world learning opportunities that open students' eyes to a new world of possibilities. We're committed to building the local talent pipeline and ensuring that our industry and company have access to a competitive workforce that will lead innovation in our second century. Today's students hold the keys to that future success. Every day, Boeing employees model excellence in creating problem-solving, technical expertise, curiosity, and persistence, the same qualities we want to prepare and inspire in our next generation. I'm proud to be here on behalf of the Boeing Company to support Okaloosa Public Schools and present a $50,000 contribution to their code initiative, which will provide hands-on opportunities for elementary schoolers to learn STEM concepts and coding. We can't wait to see what the future holds for these talented students. I got a big check over here. There we go.
I see it.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
This is to prove to Boeing that it's not in the Hank Sanders Fund, it's in all the Oh, man, by a Florida Gator? Oh. Had to wear it, right? Wow.
All right, perfect. 1, 2, 3. And go this way. Great.
Good deal.
Please do. Hold on.
Thank you. I almost wore my Georgia face mask.
Hey, I knew we had something good in common.
That's right. Good dogs. There you go. Hey, Niceville, we gotta win it all this year. In Baker, we gotta win it all, right?
Thank you, yes.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
All do, sir.
So, Ms. Branscombe, I'm going to ask that you hold your comments just for a minute. We got to do some other school board business just for a minute. So at this time, I'm going to recess our workshop and call in to order our Okaloosa School Board Leasing Corporation Board of Directors meeting. And so we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move.
Ms. Vancheck makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. Now we're to approval of the minutes of meeting of December 5th, 2019. I need a motion to approve, please.
I move.
Dr. Kelly makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Gardner seconds. Any discussion? Hear none. Ms. Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. So now we're to action items and annual election of directors. Mr. McInnes?
Yes, sir. In accordance with the Articles of Incorporation of this corporation, the 5 board members of the school board are to be the 5 directors of the corporation. So it'd be appropriate to have a motion electing the current seated school board members as the 5 directors of the corporation.
Okay, so be it. Do I have a motion to approve the annual election of directors?
I'll move that the current sitting school board members be the directors of the leasing corporation for the school district.
All right. We have a motion by Dr. Kelly, a second.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Evancheck. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Garner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. Mr. McInnes?
Item 2 is the election of the officers, and those officers are to follow the officers of the school board. So the slate would be President Tim Bryant, Vice President Dr. Diane Kelly, and the Secretary would be Superintendent Chambers.
Okay, so we need a motion to
Elect those officers.
elect those officers.
I move.
Ms. Evancheck makes a motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Gardner. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries 5-0. Mr. McInnes?
The third item is approving the annual fee to the Florida Secretary of State so that we can file the 2021 annual corporate report.
Okay, we need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Dr. Kelly makes the motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Ms. Evancheck makes a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Evancheck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0, and this meeting is adjourned. And now I call back into order the workshop. So we are, Ms. Branscombe, if you would, please. I wanted to give you more of the camera time there.
Thank you. I appreciate so much you let me come up and express the gratitude we have for Boeing Company. We are very thankful for this opportunity that they're giving us. Last year, we received some legislative funding, so we were able to use that funding, as well as some money, $24,000 that we got from the Public Schools Foundation, and the $50,000 we received from Boeing. And we are in the process, we've purchased all these Little Bit kits. They are circuit kits that are magnetic, they connect, and then the kids can actually build and design things and then code them and then make them run. So as Mr. Chambers mentioned earlier, we've had 2 trainings with our teachers, with the elementary teachers, and they're already on fire. They're like, when are we getting our kits? When are we getting our kits? So we've got them ordered. Some of them we have gotten out to the schools already, and we will finish up getting those out to the schools next week once we get them all in. But what we're looking to do is this is going to be a 6 weeks process, or 6 week sessions at every elementary school, and we'll have 24 kids in each 6 week session. So we'll have 6 of those a year. And as Mr. Chambers mentioned, we have a STEM stipend for the coach for each one of these schools. And we're excited. The schools actually have they're developing who we're looking to reach. And our goal is to not necessarily reach the high achieving kid, but reach that student that doesn't get these opportunities. It's a free after school program. And that's what's so exciting about it. So we can get these kids in here and get the hands on. And we're doing this for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then we're hoping that that will transition into our middle school STEM programs, our middle school web programming, and even our carpentry classes in our middle school. So Brittany Tate, who's with us this morning, she was the writer of this grant. We're very appreciative of that. And Ms. Gates was our cheerleader for the Public Schools Foundation with the extra funding. And so we're really grateful for this because we really know, as Mr. Chambers has his passion for getting this down to elementary kids, we know we have to start younger. And we have to introduce these programs to our kids and get them excited and teach them what we offer in the middle schools. Yesterday we had the opportunity to present to the Destin Forward Leadership Group, and we got to share a lot about what we're doing in our schools and all the success that we're having and the CTE programs. It's amazing what people don't know about what all we do in the public schools. And we're really excited about this project, and we're going to keep moving forward with it. We're going to be asking for more money from Boeing for next year. We're from Triumph. We're not shy about asking for money. So anything we can do to promote our programs and to get these things in the hands of these kids is what we want to do. So we just wanted to share a little bit about what we're doing and the excitement that we have for this program. And I really appreciate you letting us share this morning. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, we'll start with Ms. Gardner. Do you have anything?
I don't have any questions. I just, again, thank the Boeing Group for working with us, and also with Ms. Gates. She's not shy either for asking for money, so I know that personally. But I would also say it's the end of the year. I know a lot of times businesses or individuals are looking places to donate. The Okaloosa School Foundation would be a great place to donate.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I think you mentioned this serves 3, 4, and 5, so the money's going straight to these children.
Yes, ma'am.
So if anybody's out there and has a donation they want to make, I'm sure that Mrs. Gates would be very welcome, very appreciative. And again, this goes right back to our children. So.
Well, and that's exactly right. Every penny is going to these kids. It doesn't go to anything to pay teacher salaries, nothing. It goes straight into these kids.
So these people that are donating truly do know this is going straight to
Yes, ma'am.
these children.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Vanchek?
No questions, but I'm just so excited about this, and I want to thank everyone involved in bringing this. I think that it puts us, ahead, the cutting edge of
Yes.
this technology. And my husband is actually a person who writes systems, and I know about coding only from that side, but I know how important it is in the workforce. And I've told him about this, and when he didn't learn it till he was well into adult times because it didn't exist. But he's thrilled to see that we're working with such young students to move that, because this is the way in technology. So we congratulations, and I'm excited to see what happens. I'll be eager to see those students working with those teachers.
Well, we're definitely going to be bringing you an update soon. So we roll it out with them in January. So they're
Great.
actually going to start in January.
Thank you.
Dr. Kelly?
I just think it's always exciting, and anytime, as your partner there said, you can entice curiosity and exploration in students, you kind of hook them into a field and certainly prepare them for what they can do in the future. So I just think it's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks.
And Dr. White, any comments or questions?
Well, all the good things have already been said, but good job, and special thanks to Boeing. Thank you.
And April, thank you very much for all that you do and your team. I see it in the schools every day, especially the schools that I represent. So thank you for all your hard work, and keep asking for that money, because if you don't ask for it,
You don't
know if you'll get it or not.
Well,
So-
one last thing I'd like to share with you, too. So we weren't targeting Richburg or Silver Sands, but Richburg has stepped up, and they want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So Miss Lusk, who is their music teacher at Richburg, she joined us for the training, and she's going to be presenting and using this in her classroom as well. So, we're reaching all spectrums, and that's what we want to do, is reach all of our kids. So thank you again, and thank you, Mr. Chambers, for all of your support, because he has been a cheerleader for
Right.
CTE, and we really appreciate
Well,
it.
and I was also going to make that comment that when Mr. Chambers was appointed superintendent a couple years ago, one of the first things that he mentioned was trying to get the coding into the elementary level. So this is something that I know he was really passionate about, and here today
Yes.
we're seeing it happen. So that's a great thing.
We're going to see more and more of it. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
And it was also great to see Miss Scallon over there smile with all these big checks come through. I mean, that's makes the bank account look better, doesn't it? All right, so 7.4, Spring 2021 Education Plan, per Department of Education Order Number 2020-EO-07, presented by Sheila Lightbourne, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
And we are going to share a little bit of information here. So I know this is going to be a wealth of information at the school board workshop today. But I do want to say, as Ms. Lightbourne comes up, Mr. Horton's also going to give some information today as it relates to this, and Dr. Hale's going to give some information as it relates to this. And this spring 2021 education plan is a big deal as well. We just received guidance, I believe, last week, and there's a whole lot to get done before December 15th. And the importance of this plan is that it ensures us that we're going to get funding for the second semester. And that is has been a question on all superintendents' minds and boards' minds across the state. Now, what we don't know is whether it's going to be 100% fully funded, but what we've been assured to this point, is that the impact would be much less than maybe what it could have been, since the vast majorities of districts across the state of Florida are under their FTE projections. But we also know that there's a decent amount that are also over their FTE projections as well. So the state's making sure that those districts get their funding and then minimize the impact to districts who didn't meet those FTE projections. But Mrs. Lightbourne and her group, Mr. Horton, his group, Dr. Hale, his group, to pull this off by December 15th has not been an easy task, but I'm extremely proud of the work that they've done, but not just at the district level. They've reached down to our principals, they're reaching down to teachers as well to get input on this plan, so it's not just a top-down plan. So a lot of conversations have occurred, which I very much appreciate.
Absolutely. I kind of wanted to start and go through, there are assurances that we have to check off on in the plan that say we're providing some of these things. One of which is, and some are easy, we're going to keep all of our brick and mortar schools open. So that's an easy one. We're going to do that. We're also going to continue all modalities of learning. So what that means is we're continuing brick and mortar, we're continuing My School Online, which that was the question that we were all waiting for funding for. And then we're also continuing our Okaloosa Online, our virtual. So those all will be continuing. In that, we also were given, one of the assurances is that parents of students who are not progressing well in the modality that they're in, most My School Online, will be notified. So we received this last Monday. Friday, we presented to principals and gave them a timeline, and they started this week contacting those families. So our timeline was determine who those students are, start making phone calls, and then there's a letter that we will also attach to this plan that will go to DOE, but that letter is being mailed home. The order requires us to tell these students that they should be coming back to brick and mortar and be in a different learning modality because they're not successful in the modality they're in. However, it also tells us that we have to give them an opt-out. So the letter has both, you should be coming back, we think this is best for you. However, you do have an opt-out if you have specific reasons not to come back to a different learning modality. So that the schools are in the middle of making those phone calls, mailing those letters, and gathering that data of who's coming back and who's not. And all of you who have been at schools understand that now we need to figure out how many of these students are going to come back, and then how does that impact our brick and mortar. And Mr. Horton will talk to you a little bit about that side of it. Also in the plan, it talks about robust progress monitoring. And so the state has been telling us all along that they're going to require all of this progress monitoring data to be turned into them. So in that, right before Thanksgiving, we were sent another grant for a data scientist. That and that will, I'm sure Dr. Helm kind of jumping over and into stuff, but it all kind of goes together. So that data scientist is critical because the amount of data that's going to be required to send to DOE is why they chose to give us a grant to provide us that person, and that is a temporary position that will go through October, the end of October. So that's when that person will be gathering the data, working with schools to see how the data needs to be implemented. We'll also be a part of that, where there will be data chats at the district level and then data chats at the school level. So all of that's kind of coming together and moving on that way. Also in the plan, it requires us to provide students who are not progressing appropriately or who are below grade level monthly progress reports. So we'll be doing that. Now, our current students online get a weekly progress report. So we're already doing some of these things. This would be monthly for our students in brick and mortar, especially those who come back. So that's another targeted group. If the student comes back and they were a struggling student in My School Online, then they will also have some extra progress monitoring going on for them to make sure that we're getting them caught up. So all the progress monitoring, you have to be doing something else. So then there's all of the supplemental instruction that must occur, and so that's big part of the plan. So I gave you guys the latest draft. There may be some tweaks by the time we turn it in to DOE on the 15th, but it's the meat is what you have. The supplemental instruction is before and after school tutoring, during school pull-out type tutoring that can happen during elective classes, extended homerooms. Our schools get very creative with finding some minutes to do some extra tutoring. Some teachers will do office hours, that sort of thing. So that's because we know before and after school's a long day. Sometimes they're just wiped out, and at the end of the day, we don't get a lot accomplished. Also, through Tammy and Stephanie's grant, we have the virtual tutoring, so you can be in school all day, but then don't have to stay after school. And maybe at 7 o'clock, the tutoring is after you've had a brain break, you can now get on and have the virtual tutoring for our secondary math and science students right now. I did talk to our elementary middle schools about that yesterday, and they can use POC dollars to also try to do some of those pieces if their brick and mortar isn't working well. So we've got all kinds of things, supplemental instruction, that we're putting in place for these students, and that's part of the plan. The other piece is that in the plan, it requires us to continue professional development. And as you all know, substitutes has been a struggle. It's been better since we added the stipend, but it's still a struggle. So we've done most of our professional development via virtual. And trying to do some video type or webinars in the evenings where we can potentially pay teachers to do them at other times versus pulling them out of the classroom. So we're looking into all the other opportunities. We're currently doing a lot of professional development. We do work with our teachers every other week, our teachers who are online. I get on with them, Denise Berry gets on with them, my other girls get on with the secondary, and we work through every problem that those online teachers have. So that's been really, really valuable, and we've really enjoyed that. I think the teachers have as well, because they have immediate answers. So that's been one of the big things that we've been doing, and we will continue that, plus all of our iReady training and Accelerate training and all the other things that they need because of the new programs. So that's a quick down and dirty of the plan. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Nope.
I do just have one quick question,
Sure.
Sheila. I appreciate that. I know that's a lot of work in a short amount of time, and I've certainly been there. But it sounds like with all the data that it's almost like having to create a district-wide SPP. So the parts and pieces. So with all the data and these pieces, could some of that be shared back out with the schools, so for their next round of their SPPs?
Oh, absolutely.
They could include some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be gathering the data from the schools, so they will have their own personal data, but as we gather it, just like we always have always done with Joe, is we'll put that in a format that they can then use for their schools, for their own school improvement, as well as looking forward for those students. One of the things that what DOE really wants us to look at is, are these supplemental strategies and programs that we're using actually helping the students grow? And so that data will all be shared absolutely with the schools, and I'll bring it back to the school board as we gather.
Good. It seems too good not to dovetail together.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Ms. Lightbourne, going back to these progress reports and things, will those be generated by MIS and those going out? Is that all virtual?
So,
Or who does
so
that?
we're in the process of creating these progress reports. We're trying to make them fillable type documents where we've looked at every supplemental resource that we use. So a teacher can check by, like we have an elementary, a middle, and a high school one right now. Teacher can check, I'm using iExcel, I'm using MathNation, I'm using whatever, iReady, and then they can put student grade, how it's progressed, and then have a comment box. But it would not be a generated, I mean, the teachers would have to generate it because it would be specific for students. And honestly, monthly, we don't necessarily gather, like iReady isn't monthly, it's 3 times a year. So we would have to be looking at their individual data at that time. So it would have to be generated by teacher. I actually have a little conversation that Jordan and I are going to have after this as to how we're going to accomplish that piece.
So really, this is putting a little bit more on our teachers, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes.
once again,
Yes.
those that are, so-called in the trenches are really having to step up even more. And I just want to thank those teachers, because already what they're having to do in this kind of time is that, but it's necessary, and it does have value. It's just not busy work,
Right.
but.
And this is on the brick and mortar side, because
Right.
currently on the online side, we actually send progress reports weekly.
Right.
So Jordan and I were both very happy that we've already got the
Yeah.
online side really covered more than what DOE is requiring. But brick and mortar now will be monthly, which we don't currently necessarily do. We do it for ESE students, that's a requirement, so that will continue on the ESE side. They will use what they currently use, but for our gen ed students, we would have to add this.
And of course, at this time, we don't exactly know how many students will move from which format. We never quite know that, especially going into the second semester. And after these parents are notified, what direction they will do, or how many will waver out of that with unique situations. So the teachers are, it's challenging for them to be, as much as the district, in that kind of limbo of not being
Yes,
able to
not
prepare
knowing.
to the last minute. So again, I just want to give a shout out to them and what they have to do to keep, it's a constantly moving target, so to speak,
Yes, it
that
is.
they're working with this year.
2020.
2020, and it sounds like going in a little bit into 21, right?
Yes,
So-
ma'am, yes.
But thank you for your work in getting this, because you get this mandate coming from the state, and then you have to sift through it, and that's what our district staff is great at doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
And as Mr. Horton comes up, and Mr. Van Scheck, I'm so glad you said that, because Jordan's out here, I see Ms. Barron here. The impact at the district level is significant. The impact at the school level is monumental, and in terms of what they have to do. And you already know, pre-this, COVID has already changed the way that we do things, and what's on the principal's plate, what's on the teacher's plate has already expanded exponentially. And now you place this on there, and it's good because it's about closing the achievement gap. But the reality is it's even more. So just like you said, Mr. Van Scheck, and I know the board recognizes as well, the work that's happening at the school level right now, it's almost heroic in terms of being able to get all of this done. So just appreciate all that, and again, just appreciate what's happening in all these different departments as well.
And I'll be brief, and I wanted to just share a couple of things. One of them is, as a component to this plan and the decisions that parents have to make about bringing their child back to school, just wanted to make sure we reminded everybody of the updated quarantine guidelines from CDC. Of course, we put those out to parents. The schools are aware, and the health department's working with us to administer those new guidelines that were accepted by the state over the weekend. And it's also important to remind everyone that the Department of Health is the entity that releases people from quarantine. And so in the past, when we were under a 14-day quarantine for contacts, the Department of Health would call and check on those individuals, check their well-being toward the end of that 14 days, and then tell them that they were able to go back to school. And then there was great coordination between Ms. Schroeder and her staff and the Department of Health and the schools about kids coming back. And so really, the change in guidelines provides a week of a little bit of unsettledness while people kind of work through that, but then it will become the new norm. And so the two things that the CDC put out that the Department of Health accepted and passed along to us as our guidelines would be one, and we're talking about asymptomatic people, staff and students, of course, but if there are no symptoms, then completion of day 10 now is the benchmark for returning to school. And again, a call would be made to that individual by the Department of Health prior to that completion of day 10 to check on them and to then notify them they could return to school or work. The other piece that's in the updated guidelines, of course, is the PCR testing. And so it's very specific because I know there's different kinds of tests that can be taken out there. The PCR test is the one that, the only one that would be accepted now if someone who was in day 6 of their quarantine wanted to get a PCR test on day 6 of their quarantine or later, and then those results came back negative, and of course they were asymptomatic, then there's the possibility of that student or employee to return to work following day 7 of quarantine. So the timeline of that's interesting. Well, I got a PCR test, and it took about 2 days to get those results back, so it may not even be practical. It could be, but if you get a test on day 6, you might not get your results back until day 8, and then you'd be cleared to possibly return on day 9. But it's in the guidance, so there may be an opportunity. It's important to know that the school district is not administering the PCR test, and we encourage parents and staff to contact the Department of Health to make sure what they're doing is in accordance with these guidelines. Because if you get a PCR test in day 3 and it's negative, then that does not meet the guidelines. So it's got to be day 6 of the quarantine or later. So the Department of Health, of course, Terry Schroeder and works with our schools, and as parents call in have questions, so we're carefully working with them. But the Department of Health did call families over the weekend and notify them that under the new guidelines they could return to school on Monday. So Terry did a great job working with those principals. We finally got that list of phone calls that were made, and so she reached out to principals so that Monday morning we had knowledge that certain students were coming back to work. So that's something that parents have to think about as they determine whether or not to bring their child back. So unfortunately, in some parents' mind, there's more than the academic piece for these struggling students. They have the safety concern. So we continue to try to put information on our dashboard about COVID cases school by school. I don't know that there are too many other districts in Northwest Florida that do that. There may be, but we want to be very transparent with what's going on in our schools. We get that information straight from the Department of Health and post that up there. And so I will share that coming back from the holidays and Thanksgiving, everyone was concerned about increases in cases. So we'll have the results of those to post on the website as soon as we provide this from the Department of Health. And then I would also move on to the other piece of this on the school district side, again, as we did at the 9 weeks, trying to coordinate and ensure that we have the right number of teachers in the right places teaching the right number of kids. And so that's a critical piece, and we, the ability for the district at this point to be held harmless on their funding is critical. So I don't think by any stance that we overhired people at the beginning of the year. I think we were very cautious in hiring. I think now at this point in time, if a teacher were to leave the school district, there may be a possibility, like there is in any year, to not have to replace a particular teacher and to do some things, especially in the virtual world, because I think it's semester, as we cautioned parents before, when there's a lot of movement of students at a single point in time, then we have to kind of reconcile what's going on. And it may be that the online environment, a teacher comes back into the building, and that would create a need for those remaining online students to have a new teacher second semester. So the communication piece between parents and schools and district and teachers is critical when you get to that point where you're starting to do that. So and as a reminder to parents, we still have about 4.5 weeks left in the semester. So those making a change at semester, we're talking about January 26th. So there'll be a lot of discussion and movement and contact happening even after we come back from the break. But it's important, and I want to make sure the board members know that we don't have any expectations of hiring additional staff to track kids back into the school. We'll continue to do what we did before. We brought 20 to 25 teachers back into the classroom at the 9 weeks based on student movement. So I expect some more of that. And at this point, don't have a sense yet of how much that would be. And I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Board members? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Horton. And Dr. Hale's making his way up.
And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Just to follow up back to what Mr. Horton was saying, we did go through this process from the HR perspective. At the end of the 9 weeks, we do anticipate this new emergency order to precipitate some more student movement back to the building. So just to be reminded, we've discussed this prior, but the union and the district got together early on to create a process by which those teachers would be identified. If they had to go back to the brick and mortar, principals are doing a really good job of communicating with their teachers and knowing, in fact, there's a population out there that's ready to come back. And so that makes the job easy. But just so that you know that teachers that do have to transition back to the brick and mortar, anything that they would have to do would necessarily consider those various priorities that we discussed when we were deciding who would be teaching online to begin with. MIS, the principals, and HR working very closely to make sure that we do what's right by the employees. And so it's just, again, appreciate the union's involvement with this MOU that we had way back at the beginning that kind of foresaw the need to move teachers so that it can be as seamless as possible. We did communicate with the My School Online teachers earlier this week with regard to, hey, be reminded, this possibility has always been out there, so don't be surprised if you get tapped on the shoulder. And then obviously, principals we've communicated to with regard to assisting from the HR perspective if they have questions with regard to high-risk employees, certification issues, and things like that. Just be aware that those things are considered when we were talking about those transitions that Mr. Horton was speaking of earlier. And also, there's information provided to the principals about how to facilitate that transition for those teachers with regard to timing, facilities, and in the event that maybe a high-risk teacher had to return for whatever reason, special considerations for that teacher from the school side as well. So just wanted to make sure that you guys were reminded and aware that there is a process for this. And Ms. Appleberg and I and Ms. Cox, their chief negotiator, have worked this out many times prior. And like I said, at the end of the first 9 weeks, it went fairly smoothly, and we would keep our fingers crossed that any additional movement may also be seamless. So. And I can answer any questions too, but that was more or less just a tag on to what you've already heard.
Thank you, Dr. Hale.
So the last thing, so we have some students who may choose to return, then we have some students who are being asked to return, and then just to sum up, there's a lot of moving parts in order to make that happen, and I'll use Dr. Hale's words, seamlessly. So just want to again appreciate the support of the board during this whole process, because it is it's a lot, and I definitely appreciate the work that everyone is putting forth for our students.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Chambers, and thank you, staff, for that presentation. So Section 8 is consent agenda. 8.1 will be approval of the consent agenda. 8.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of November 5th, 2020, minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th, 2020, minutes of organizational meeting of November 17th, 2020. And we're at Section 8.3, naming of the Pryor Middle School field house as the Greg Wiggins Field House, presented by Brooke Barron, Principal, Pryor Middle School, and recommended by Dr. Lamar White and the Superintendent for approval. I see Ms. Barron is out in the audience there. Would you like to come before the board?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a proposal to name the Pryor Fieldhouse the Greg Wiggins Fieldhouse. Coach Greg Wiggins was employed here for 40 years in the Okaloosa School District, most of the time at Pryor Middle School. After he retired, he continued for many, many years up until his recent death, still coming to Pryor every single day, washing all the football players' uniforms after every game, doing checks, to make sure kids were eligible and checking up on their grades and just being a mentor to all of our young men and women at Pryor and involved in athletics, to the point where this past year when he wasn't at every football game on the sideline, I thought he was just, because of COVID, just staying home, and because he has an elderly mother that he just lives with, and he was actually sick, and he passed away quite quickly. So a push from some of our former staff members, they actually came to me. I've had several donations already, probably about $500 in donations that people have sent to me to cover the cost of naming the field house, having some type of a plaque, a memorial there. And so it won't be any funds coming out of anything other than donations specifically for that cause. And we wanted to try to push this forward as quickly as we could so that his mother and his sister could both be a part of the renaming ceremony if it was approved. So that's what we're asking at Pryor.
So before I ask other board members if they have any questions, Dr. White, you brought this before the board. Do you have any comments regarding your request?
No, except to say that I'm very happy to support Principal Barron and her SAC, and I know that this is certainly a well-deserved honor for Greg, and I'm very happy to do it for him as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Board members, any comments or? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Barron.
All right, thank you.
All right. Throw my glasses back on. So we're at section 8.4, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new school board policy 01-30, Title IX policy prohibiting sexual harassment.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might just offer some background for the board. The board already has policies that prohibit sexual harassment and provide procedures for that to be investigated and handled. However, the federal government implemented a new in part of their Title IX regulation, a new regulation specifically focused on sexual harassment and that type of discrimination, and required that agencies receiving federal funding implement new policies that put forward the new procedures that are set forth. It's a very comprehensive process now that the federal regulation will require that we follow when there are complaints or allegations of that conduct. And so this policy will be a standalone policy simply addressing that portion of Title IX dealing with prohibiting sexual harassment and providing for methods to investigate that and to deal with that under the new federal guideline. If you approve this policy after a public hearing at your second meeting in January, we will bring back some recommended modifications to 3 or 4 of your current policies that address sexual harassment so that we can simply refer back to this comprehensive policy. But we'll bring those back once we know the board's actions on this policy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McInnes. So we'll move to item 8.5, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new job description for risk management analyst. 8.6, request to delete an administrative assistant 2 position and add a 12-month district level secretary position in cost center 9022 information systems. 8.7, budget amendment number 2, fiscal year 2020 through 2021. 8.8, monthly financial statement for October 2020. 8.9, school donations. 8.10, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register for October 2020 totaling $26,327,849.38, and bank transfers for October 2020 totaling $10,050,000. And 8.11, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.12, authorization for appropriate federal impact aid funds and make a payment in the amount of $63,991 to charter schools. 8.13, agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Huddle Tickets LLC, doing business as GoFan, for electronic ticket sales. 8.14, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Baker Fire District. 8.15, revised award tabulation for ITB 20-15 bleacher and stadium repairs. 8.16, exempted purchase over $25,000 Mosul. 8.17, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 Train. 8.18, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 WTI. 8.19, service agreement number 21-61, Denise McLaughlin. 8.20, service agreement number 21-60, Emerald Coast Science Center.
I do have a quick question about that.
Okay.
I love that concept, by the way, and I see that Diane Frazier is here, and I want to thank her and call her out publicly for all that she does. But one quick question, I didn't see Destin Middle School on there. Is there a rationale? Was that geography probably, or?
The program is
Okay.
have notes. So this is a program that we started with Tammy Ellis over the summer. It is part of a grant, and I'm not sure that Destin Middle School is part of the grant, and so that's why it is the way that it is. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Can I just take one?
Oh,
Well,
would love to.
honestly,
Yeah.
I was going to have you come up because I did see you come in.
Okay.
And Mr. Chambers and I, when we had the agenda meeting the other day, I made a comment that we need to tell the community about what's going on at the Emerald Coast Science Center and show Diane some love. So
Exactly.
here you go.
And
You
if
get
you
to
haven't
share
been there,
share
you
some
need to
things that are
go.
going on.
That's great, because we need a lot of love right now. So again, this is the Virtual Science Lab program that we're bringing to you today, and that contract is part of a grant. Tammy came to us. Some of those funds within that grant are set aside for us, and some of the programs that we had been running, which were taking our planetarium into the middle school, and of course, last year we didn't get the opportunity to do that because all of those scheduled events were in the last 9 weeks of the school year. So we missed out on that portion of the grant funding last year. I believe there's at least 2 more years left in the grant. So we were trying to develop some new programs that would work within our current situation. And that's where we came up with this virtual science lab. I will tell you just sort of across the board a little bit about what's happening at the Science Center. We're terrified. We are so scared. We are actually right now just operating off of donations that have come from the community. Our admissions are down. Probably they're only about 25% of what they were for the last year. This point in time, I understand people don't feel comfortable, and I completely get that. A year without field trips could break us. And I just come to you and tell you that because it is an actual fact. I mean, I am very scared. We have cut back on all of our staff hours. We've tried to finagle our opening times to be as cost effective as possible. And it's scary. It's very, very scary for us. And so I would say this about ourselves and about any museum, and I tell people this all the time. Every place that I go, I tell people, please visit your museum. If you feel comfortable, please visit your museums. If you want your museum to be here next year, you need to support it right now. And so I come to you today saying, if you guys can think of any sort of other types of programs that we can somehow or another partner with you to get some sort of revenue generated for us, please, we're open. I know that I had a friend come in yesterday, and she has a daughter that's ESE at Choctaw, and she's doing online, and she was talking about how the teacher was trying to explain to them what a DNA model looked like, and she was telling them to hold your finger up and turn it like this, and that's like a DNA model. And I said, oh, well, I have one here that's like an actual model that we can untwist and have that ladder formation. And I was thinking, Why aren't we plugged into some type of programming like that where we could just say, oh, hey, so we're going to turn it over to the Science Center for the next 5 minutes, and they're going to explain to you, or they're going to show this to you, from the Science Center. And she's going to be talking about evolution and natural selection. And I thought, oh, well, we talk about this all the time with our bearded dragons because we have a leatherback and we have a regular one. Well, the leatherback is selectively bred to have a smoother, less scale structure. So this is something we talk about kids when they come into the facility on field trips, or families when they visit, and we talk about breeding and how to breed for certain traits, or why certain traits are, appear. And so I thought, oh, well, that would have been so simple. We could have just plugged in for 5 minutes and say, hey, look, here's a leatherback and here's a regular bearded dragon. Can you see up close, see the difference in their scale structures? This is what breeding will do to change, different types of attributes. So I don't know. I just ask for you guys to continue to give us love and support. And just a couple of other things. I know you're super busy. We have just put in a boating exhibit. We were donated a 23-foot pontoon boat from Legendary Marine earlier this year. We have a wave runner coming. We have a canoe coming. We're looking for somebody that was willing to donate a small sailboat. We are working with the Coast Guard out of New Orleans. They came and donated 2 channel markers, a red and a green channel marker. We're working with the Powerboat Association. I was in a phone call with the state of Florida's Outdoor Education for Fish and Wildlife, talking about boater education, boater safety, navigation, all of the science and all of that goes within that, so that as people come to the Science Center, there will be this whole new opportunity. It's outside, it's covered, it has a huge carport over the boat, so you can get on it even when it's rainy. And how awesome is that going to be in the future when kids from the north end of the county come on a field trip, and now they can get outside and they can get on this pontoon boat, and they can, because a lot of them don't even have the opportunity to go to the beach or to go south of the county. And here they're going to get this boating experience, and that may spark their imagination, or that may let them, talk to their parents about, hey, let's go to the beach sometime, or let's do this. So we're super excited about that. We put in a dino dig this summer. We're building a brand new tree house that's going to talk about living versus non-living and habitats, and what do living things need in order to be able to thrive and survive. We have a new project that I just got an email back from Sally Reagan at Choctaw. We're putting in what I'm calling poetry posts, and these are 4x4, just your 4x4 fence post. And art honor students at Choctaw are going to decorate and paint the post, and then we're going to attach little wooden plaques that we've used our Glowforge to etch poetry. And each one of the posts is going to have a different theme, because who couldn't use a little poetry in their lives right now, And I think it's just, number one, we don't have a good appreciation for poetry. And I think it's just a really neat way to segue. So we'll have a post that's nature themed, and a post that's ocean and water themed. And, we'll have a haiku post. And then, so that's just another great way to sort of add something unique and different. And so that's going to be coming really soon too. And then I don't know if you guys saw the newspaper online today, but our tortoise, Sebastian, is in the newspaper. He is a sulcata tortoise, and we have been taking him. He has his own social media, so he's on Facebook and he's on Instagram. And we have been taking him, first of all, to visit all of the other museums, to encourage people to go to museums, and using Sebastian as a platform to sort of like, hey, go to the Heritage Museum in Valpy. Sebastian visited, and here's some of the exhibits that he had fun with. So he's already been to the Armament Museum, Indian Temple Mount, the Heritage Museum, and next week we're going to Destin Fishing and History Museum, and then right after the new year we'll go up to Baker Block, and hopefully also get into Carver Hill. It's really hard to get in touch with the people at Carver Hill. But so that's our idea for Sebastian. He's also done some Christmas shopping, and he went and voted. So please, follow him on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm so thankful for the close relationship that we have with the school district, and am so looking forward to having, field trip kids back. We had close to 7,000 field trip kids, and then to not to hear those kids in your facility, and not to hear that wow or that God, it's just devastating, you know, and it just hurts us because those are the those that we love to do, and those are the things that we love to hear. So yeah, any ideas that you guys have for programming, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are happy to be creative, and we're so excited. We've been working on this virtual science lab program. We have done the first half of the year already, so once these schools get signed up, they'll have access to the older ones, plus all the new ones that we're creating as we go along. The snippet on the overview that I sent you guys has Alex Fogg. He's the marine science coordinator, so he was our first Ask the Expert, which was awesome because we have a new lionfish exhibit, and Alex went out and caught the lionfish for us off the jetties. And so that's a Fish and Wildlife Commission exhibit that we put in June. So lots of new things, lots of great stuff. Thank you so much for all of your support.
So, Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
First of all, so exciting. And as an English teacher, I'm going to come check out that poetry.
Yes.
I think that's great.
Awesome.
Poetry. But I want to give you an opportunity to let the public know, how can they support you? If they want to support you, what can they do at this time?
Visit. Just visit. I mean, you can do it safely. You know, we require face masks at the museum. And you can control where you stand, how close you get to people. We clean often. So it's you know, we have been working really hard to create new outdoor exhibits. People feel more comfortable outside, and we realize that. And if you can't visit, buy a membership, so that way, you know, when you're ready to, you can visit. You can make a donation, but visit all your museums, because museums are what tie us together. They're what define us as a community, and they show us what our shared history is. And you know, as a science center, we're looking forward, but if you look at all of these wonderful history museums that we have, they explain to us who we are and those ties and those bonds that created this community. And they're so important to us. Every single one of them needs you to visit. So we've got holidays coming up, we got relatives coming in, we got parents that want to go shopping, and maybe grandma and grandpa can take their kid to the museum. That would be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Vanacek. Appreciate it.
So, just one quick thing for you, Diane.
Yes.
You know, I've known you for many years, and folks, what you're seeing on camera right now is the real deal. She is so passionate about the Emerald Coast Science Center, and it's one of our hidden gems in our community. And I would encourage you. You can follow her on Facebook. I do. I follow her on Instagram. So she's out there keeping everybody aware that the Emerald Coast Science Center is still alive.
Yes.
And running. And a lot of great things down there.
Thank
So it was our pleasure today to let you talk about the Emerald Coast Science Center. And it's also our pleasure to have such a great relationship with you. And we'll get those kids back in there eventually. So
Thank you so much for your
And I just
time.
have just a quick, are you still doing the yearly passes? That
We are.
So
Mhm.
great stocking stuffers maybe
Oh,
for
absolutely.
individuals that are thinking about
Mhm.
something different, and again, something to use throughout the year.
Yes, and your family pass to the Science Center gets you free admission for full year, discounts on some of the programs that have prices, and as a member of the Association of Science and Technology Centers, if you show your family membership, you get free or reduced admission into over 330 other museums throughout the United States that are part of that organization. So,
Something to think about. for
thank
the
you.
holidays.
Thank you for the plug.
all right. Okay, so we'll move on down to item 8.21, temporary adjustment of school district food service labor benefits and other cost credits applied to the monthly invoices submitted by the nutrition group for the time period of September 2020 through May 2021. 8.22, final approval of support agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Department of the Air Force 96 Test Wing, Eglin Air Force Base for lease of the Eglin Elementary School facilities. 8.23, self-help project at Fort Walton Beach High School for track facility upgrade, Phase 3. 8.24, self-help project at Pryor Middle School for an outdoor construction lab. And Ms. Barron, I know it's been, y'all been in the paper a lot here lately, or at least been all over social media with all the grants. But would you like to come up and just talk about a couple of those real quick? Just give you a chance to brag on Pryor Middle School today.
So we are very, very lucky to have a great construction and architecture program at Pryor with the help of the CTE staff here at the Okaloosa School District, and then a lot of very generous community donors. It's excelled more than my wildest dreams just in a year. We've built a handicap ADA accessible deck for extra seating for our lunchroom that was totally done by students, from measurements to digging the footings to pouring the concrete, leveling every board. Right now we had a little delay because of COVID, so right now they're staining it, painting it, getting the steps done. It should be finished by the time that we leave for Christmas. We also have had a lot of individual people in our community, particularly like Larry and Nancy Klein, that have helped facilitate lots of donations to our program. The most recent was a $50,000 donation to help us with the self-help project. What the self-help project is, it's basically an outdoor construction lab, because right now we just have a very small area that was a classroom that we converted. On either side of the classrooms are tech labs. So all of our coding classes and things like that are on the other side. So whenever you get into the construction lab with circular saws and all kinds of things making a lot of noise, it disturbs them just a little bit. So this is going to allow us to basically bring our indoor classroom to the outdoors and kind of have them just flow into each other. We'll have a big, kind of like a pole barn structure in the back, open air, covered from the elements that the kids can use. The big long pieces of lumber can fit there, and they can use it to do roof joists and all kinds of bigger projects that can't fit into the classroom. And so we've secured donations for everything that we need for the self-help project. We just need to get it going. It would have been going a little sooner had it not been for COVID, but now everything's ready to go, and we're ready to get started with that so that the kids can get outside and start getting into bigger and better projects. So we have a waiting list at our school. Any student who isn't serious about the program is put into a different elective so that somebody else can take the place. We had several students this past summer, because they were already OSHA certified, that went out and worked. Because they were 15, they went out and worked construction jobs already, making money for their families. The program's continued now at Choctaw, so we have the opportunity to earn an OSHA certification, 2 different certifications, and high school credit now through our program at Pryor, and then the kids will be able to continue on at Choctaw learning and earning other certifications, so that hopefully by the time they graduate, they are more qualified than most to go out into the construction world and start working immediately and earning a really good living. So we're very excited about it. Our kids are very excited about it. Our school and our community is very excited about it. Paul Hartzog, tons of different construction companies, the building industry. We've been working hand in hand with Alan Baggett and the building industry. So we've just had so much support. I can't even tell you how thankful we are and how grateful. So thank you. That's it.
Don't go too far yet, Mr. Bryan, if you'd allow me.
Yes, sir.
Just share briefly, what is the difference between construction classes today, maybe versus when you and I were in a construction class, maybe back in the day?
Oh, yes. Okay, well, so this isn't a shop class. I know when I was in school, we had shop classes. It's not a shop class. It's architecture, design, and construction. The kids learn, they learn how to read blueprints, how to draw blueprints. They learn every type of measurement. In fact, one of the grants that Brittany Tate was just up here talking about, one of the grants that she helped us write that we just received yesterday for our construction program is measurement tools where they can measure things from far away. Their math skills have increased incredibly because a lot of the kids come into that class not even really knowing how to measure, and now they're having to measure everything down to, a millimeter. How everything is so important as far as measurement goes, and they learn how to work together as a team, communication skills, leadership skills, but they are literally design and building all of their own projects. So they are doing projects themselves that we would pay commercial contractors to come in and do at our school. They're actually being able to do a lot of those things themselves. So we hope to just keep getting bigger and bigger to where eventually we can be a self-supportive program by building things that they are able to sell to the public to help support our program. But it's so different than what it used to be. It's not the old shop from when I was in school. The things that they are doing in that program, it amazes me every day. So I welcome anybody, once we can have visitors to the school again, to come and check it out, because you'll be amazed at what 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids are out there building and doing and accomplishing. It's incredible.
I know last year I got to go visit. I came to visit, and that was the first place she took me, was back there to go see what was going on. And you're right. They were on computers doing all the graphic designing and doing all the measurements and everything. And it's just kind of neat to see how that was progressing. And of course, giving these students an opportunity to better themselves and learn a trade. And to get all that information at that age and start. Before they even get out of high school, they're going to have a wealth of information that most of us would never have at that time.
It's true, and our community is lacking. The projection for the future is that the construction and architecture jobs are going to be in demand, and they're going to be low in this area. So hopefully, these kids will be able to get out and get a job and have a great life. I hope. It's my hope.
Also want to shout out to probably one of the most enthusiastic teachers over there for this program, Mr. Rynierson.
Oh, boy.
He loves it. I mean, he is in his element when you go over there and see him. So that is a perfect, and I think that is one of the reasons it's a successful program, is his enthusiasm comes off to those students, and he gets them fired up about it.
He does, and to them, it's a job site. Yep. So, when they're out there on the job site, that's the announcement that comes over, our loudspeaker at Pryor to let all kids know that they are to report to the job site, not
good.
The classroom.
That's
so
good.
and he runs it just like it's a job site, and they're expected to be there on time and get everything done exactly the way it's supposed to be done. There's no goofing off at all. It's very serious. You would think it was just a very well-run adult job site out there. It's incredible. So come see it anytime. Anyone's welcome.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And in one sec.
Okay.
Laura Hill, Baker, they have carpentry.
Right.
OTC, carpentry. And because of the success of what's going on at Pryor under Ms. Barron's leadership, now Choctaw's going to have carpentry.
Mm-hmm.
Bruner has carpentry. And then Fort Walton Beach High School is going to have carpentry. And like Ms. Barron was saying, our local building industry, there's a need. And now, through leadership such as Ms. Barron and the others, we're preparing kids with a pipeline from middle school to high school. So just absolutely appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
I was actually at Bruner's not too long ago. Mr. Massey was so proud to show me the new carpentry room, how he had expanded and extended on the program. So very nicely done by all of them.
It's exciting. It is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron.
I was just thinking, you can go ahead, I'm just talking, we're about to do a lot of construction pieces in our school district. What a great opportunity for those students to look at some of those projects. Obviously, they can't work on them and everything, but they'll be able to see what's going on and connect that to the real world. As they see the structures in our district get improved or added to, or the things we're going to do, even at their own school at Pryor and everything, I just think that's going to be a great connection for them to see, taking it from their school to the, quote, real world as we move forward with our construction progress in 2021.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we'll move down to item 8.25, Comprehensive IT Risk Assessment Plan. 8.26, move to committee and staff reports. Item 7.4, Spring 2021 Education Plan per Department of Education, order number 2020-EO-07, presented by Sheila Lightbourne. And then 8.27, School Affiliation Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and the Meadows Wellness Clinic for the Practical Nursing Program at Okaloosa Technical College. 8.28, amendment to the Destin High School Charter approved by the school district on October 28, 2019, request to include the addition of 11th grade during the first year of operation. 8.29, school performance plans, SPP, school improvement plans for 2020, 2021. 8.30, 2020 through 2021 SAC membership for Okaloosa County Schools. 8.31, course adoption for the 2020, 2021 school year. 8.32, data informed supports grants application. 8.33, appropriation of District 2 School Board capital outlay funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for wrestling mats in the amount of $7,835, presented by Mrs. Marty Gardner. And we're now down to Section 9, Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. The first two will be informational only on Monday night. 9.1, employees on administrative leave, and 9.2, deferred retirement option program. 9.3, revised substitute and temporary employee salary schedule, fiscal year 2020 through 2021, effective January 1st, 2021. 9.4, request to double fill the position of Chief Officer Finance.
I have to say something about that. If we don't vote that in, does that mean that she has to stay?
That's the same thing I was going to say.
Because if we don't vote that in, seems to me she can't retire. Isn't that the way that goes?
I would agree with
And
you.
if it's a board ruling and we vote it, that's the way it'll have to stand, Ms. Scallon.
And I was going
Okay.
to say the same thing.
So here real quick, earlier we saw, if the camera was on her, you saw Ms. Scallon smiling really big. She's smiling now, but it's kind of like, hey, it's time, but we do appreciate all that you do. And of course, we've always, feel like we have the best chief financial officer in the state of Florida.
We do.
So,
That's going to be hard to vote for.
all right, so 9.5, request for 12-month instructional unit allocation, Choctawhatchee High School. 9.6, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2020-21 school year. 9.7, add a field report for the 2020-21 school year. 9.8, employment separations. 9.9, personnel recommendations. 9.10, employee transfers. 9.11, request approval of separation agreement regarding Nicole Rickman, presented by Dr. Lee Hale. 9.12, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination.
I want to talk about that a minute, and I think I'll need Mr. Horton. We had an agreement with employees who are sent home quarantined, that we're not holding them harmless on their sick time, correct?
Dr. Hale explained that.
Okay. And so we've had several situations, I don't even know the count, now that we're approaching the end of first semester, of having to send employees on quarantine. So how do we stand with the fact that, if I'm sent home on quarantine, I don't have to use my allocated sick time? However, we're paying for a sub, so it's not a freebie. How are we working, how is that coming with balancing that out so that it's not a burden to the district on that?
Okay, so there's a lot of branches to that tree. The first thing that I would tell you is that with regard to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is set to sunset on December 31st of this year, there's an initial sick leave allowance, kind of an insurance against them having to take their own sick leave because that's provided for. The district has taken some measures to provide for some extra help in the case that particular leave runs out before employees would have to use their sick leave. There's a variety of different components that go into that. They are not required to use any portion of that leave or sick leave if they are sent home as being if they are named a direct contact as a result of something that happens in the school building. So for instance, if a teacher is a direct contact of a student that's positive and has to go home to that type of quarantine, then that is something that the district is not holding them accountable to, and they're not going to have to use their leave. It's kind of a quasi-administrative leave situation. So there's that piece. With regard to how it's impacting us financially, I could tell you that I'm not under the impression that it's a significant burden that we're having to bear. And unfortunately, the reason that I'm saying that is because of the substitute fill rates remain low, despite the fact that we've made some concessions for that. So we are having to replace some folks with substitutes. We're seeking to replace more. However, I would tell you that those fill rates are not where we want them to be, and the primary reason for that is because there's just more absenteeism. We have gotten nearly 40 additional subs on the roster since you guys approved the additional help for them, and they are all working. I asked Ms. Money to check on that for me, and they are actually all working. However, with the increased need, there still remains an unfilled rate. So principals, teachers, support professionals are all having to get creative inside their buildings. And I guess what I would say is the positive to that is that, we're not spending all the sub money that's allotted for that. But in terms of the leave, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act takes care of a portion of that. The district has committed to taking care of another portion of that. If that goes a little bit further than that, of course, sick leave and FMLA and all those types of things play into it as well. I'm not going to pretend to say that I don't think there's any impact, but I don't have an exact figure, but I can tell you that we're doing the best we can.
Thank you.
And on that question as well, and I appreciate that description, which is excellent, and then just bring Ms. Gallen up to talk a little bit more about the financial side.
Okay, what's happened is, of course, we planned our budget at the beginning of the year before COVID situation, so there was money allocated for substitutes, as we do every year, for every single teacher in the school, plus we had substitutes out of the general fund for staff development purposes. And since a lot of that has now been virtual, it has not required the number of subs that we would have otherwise. So it's kind of, as I'm looking at it currently, it's kind of, washing out. So I don't see it as a significant impact to the school district at this point.
All right, thank you for updating us on that.
All right, so we'll move down to section 9, item 9.13, leave without pay. And then section 10 will be discussion agenda, if there's any items moved from the consent agenda. We're at section 11, construction program owners representatives business, and Dr. Kelly, I'll let you.
Well, we haven't had our first meeting yet since I've been appointed to that position, but we are going to have a pre-meeting today, and then we'll have our meeting on Monday, our first official meeting since my being appointed to that role. But I'm very excited about it. I know it's going to be exciting for the general public as well as it is for the school district. And as an individual who, in my role as a school board member, advocated for the sales tax and spoke to many community groups on behalf of the sales tax initiative and contributed financially to that movement myself, and in my past having the opportunity to work with Jacobs when we built new media centers in the new schools, I certainly, as an individual, am looking forward to this, and I know I represent the voice of many community members and leaders and organizations who helped us, the chambers in particular, so I'm very excited to serve in that role. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move down to 11.2, and this, we'll be voting on this Monday night. Authorization for professional services agreement from Faithful and Gould for price validation for program number 6, task order number 2, district-wide school security upgrade project, phase 2. 11.3, owner change orders 001 and 006, transfer and balance of unused funds from program number 6, task order number 7, Longwood Elementary School corridor construction and site fencing, to program number 6, task order number 2, district-wide security upgrades. 11.4, TPM program number 6, task order number 11, pre-GMP roofing projects. And then 11.5, TPM program number 6, task order number 2, pre-GMP district-wide school security upgrade project, phase 3, the final phase, and we will be voting on all those Monday night. And now we're to Section 12, Information Technology Seat Management, and these items will be up for vote also. 12.1, CACI Task Order Number 2-173 for security camera repair at Fort Walton Beach High School. 12.2, CACI Task Order Number 2-179 for security camera repairs at Bob Sykes. And 12.3, CACI Task Order Number 2-180 for security camera repairs at Pryor Middle School. So now we're to Mr. McInnes's business.
No report today.
Okay. And Mr. Chambers, I see we do have a field trip request on here, so that's kind of nice to see that back up there again.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'll turn it over to you, sir, if you.
All right. First of all, I appreciate the board allowing us to have a number of presentations this morning to make sure that we give you the, good, updated, and relevant information. So appreciate that. I do want to say I'm very excited. We had a vision to recognize and honor our administrators. And I think we do a great job of recognizing and honoring our teachers and our educational support professionals who do a fantastic job every day. But I think it's also important to recognize our administrators. And Dr. Hale, we had spoken. He created a wonderful program and a process, created a committee. Packets had to be created in order to be eligible to be the Administrator of the Year. And that happened. And so I appreciate that. I know Dr. Hale and others on the committee. I know Dr. White's on that committee, so appreciate that. And I do want to say, even though I think you all know, we had, in terms of the principal level, at the elementary level, Ms. Amy Clue is going to represent us for the elementary level, and Ms. Gearing is going to represent us from Blue Water as well at the assistant principal level for elementary. And then we have at the secondary level, Mr. Dexter Day, and then also at the secondary level, Ms. Hickson Wells. So I think we have a great group. Also, some of them will also go on to the state level to see if we're fortunate enough, and I think we will, to have a state level Administrator of the Year. So I just appreciate Dr. Hale getting that vision out there. That's a great job in getting that committee forward. And thank you, Dr. White, for being a part of that also. Secondly, just want to reiterate, went out to a couple schools yesterday. Wright Elementary, they received an aviation grant. We had 2 teachers there who did a great job, about 1,800. And when they realized they were receiving this grant that they didn't know that they were going to get, they jumped up and down, they threw their hands up in the air, and they screamed. Actually scared me a little bit. But it was great to see that excitement and what they're going to do with the aviation grant. And then at Pryor Middle School, $5,000 grant, a Motorola grant. The first one was an AT&T grant, but the $5,000 Motorola grant to go towards construction and STEM-related courses. So that was exciting to see as well. I'd like for Mr. Horton to make his way up. Shared with you all at the last board meeting that every board meeting going forward will always have a half-cent update. And I know the board, as well as myself and staff, we want to make sure that we are accountable. We want to make sure that we're transparent in everything that we're doing. I do want to say, because I shared with the board at the last meeting, that we'd be coming forward with the Citizens Oversight Group at this meeting. Each of the chambers are coming up with their individuals. I believe, I'll just say it that way, and because of chamber meetings, not all of them have been able to get their person yet. So at the first board meeting in January, the Citizens Oversight Group will be delivered to the board for your vote, and then we'll go from there. But I do appreciate the fact that going through that process, and that's a big piece of it. And then I want Mr. Horton to kind of talk about where we are. I think I shared last time, I'd like to start digging right now, but they've shared with me that there's things that you have to do first. But I am very excited about year one and then also moving into subsequent years.
Thank you. And I think the first thing to state in terms of the agenda items you see right here, of course, there hasn't been a penny of sales tax revenue come to the district yet. And Rita will come up in a little bit and talk about the cash flow projections for that over the next 10 years. So the things that you're seeing on the agenda now are being funded through existing capital budget. But one of the things we're trying to do is set the table to begin. And so, as we know with construction timelines, they are extensive sometimes, and so it's important to do the job on the front end, because we do have an approved list of projects for the school district, for each school. And so we're beginning, we have already identified all of those. And I think the key component now with Ms. Gallen and our Jacobs-Titan partners are the appropriate timelining of those all the way out through the 10 years. So there are some projects that will operate on what we refer to as a pay-as-you-go. So, and there are others that have the potential to be accelerated based on the ability for the district to borrow funds against future sales tax revenue that's coming in, and certainly that's an option available to schools. And so as we look through to this first year, certainly the superintendent and the board in previous meetings have talked about safety and security of students being a primary goal, and that's what was a big component of the sales tax plan. So that you will see an emphasis on those programs throughout the first year and leading into the second year to complete all of the safety and security, the single point of entry, the perimeter security piece in all of our schools. And as you know, if you've been on the board for a few years, we've been trickling through with those schools a handful at a time based on funding that was available. So it is a blessing that the sales tax was approved so that we can, as the superintendent has said and the board members have asked, that we expedite those projects. And so that's going to be a priority in the first year, I think. And then the second piece is, as you've heard over the years, there are some critical areas where roofing needs exist. And so one of the things you see on the agenda this meeting is a pre-GMP for some roofing projects in all three areas of the county, where we want to do that because that allows us to get really firm pricing on that through a competitive bid process, and it allows us to take those costs that we'll receive and then timeline those out based on sales tax revenue. So we'll do those roof repairs through sales tax revenue because they're on the school's project list. But knowing what those true costs are will allow us to figure out when they can occur. Can they all occur in year one, or do some of the roofing projects have to be passed on to year two? And certainly what you see today on a pre-GMP is just, I think, three roofing projects. And so there are certainly more in the district. So I wish we could say we could get every roof completely done in year one, but it's likely not the case. And so that's why that timelining of cash flow and what's coming in under the sales tax is important. And that's being worked on right now to timeline all of these approved projects out. So by January, we'll have that information, and that's important for the Citizens Oversight Group to then see that timeline of when things will get done. Looking forward to working with Dr. Kelly on the construction meeting, because there is a lot to know, and I've learned a lot over the past year. The second leg of that, so we talked about the security piece and the roofing projects that will be a priority in year one, and those would fall into a category of pay-as-you-go. There are other projects in those have-sent project lists for schools that are more facility-related. So I'll give you as an example, there could be a cafetorium built at a particular campus. There could be a multi-purpose facility built at a high school campus. And so those facilities themselves are more applicable to be able to borrow upfront funds to go ahead and begin construction. And it's not to say it would all begin this spring by any stretch, but it would allow us to borrow against that future stream of sales tax revenue. So you think about one set of projects that's kind of pay as you go, and another set of projects, because they are the kind that can be borrowed against to complete, and using what's called certificate of participation. But those, it's also possible to expedite and do some of those facility pieces, and not necessarily waiting out to year 6, 7, 8, 9 when the sales tax revenue comes in. So that's kind of the simplistic Steve example of that. Of course, the other piece of that Mr. Chambers has spoken about before, we are analyzing our capital budget, our 2 mil money that we get every year from the state, because that also has to help us prepare and address growth. And so Mr. Chambers has talked about the crowded schools in the Destin area and the need for a K-2 center there on the property. We've talked about the need for a school in the Crestview area to service and relieve some of the K-8 crowding. We've talked about the needs in Niceville as well. So we've discussed those. That would be a third component of it. right? So there's projects we do with a half-cent sales tax, there's projects we do with our capital budget, but they all marry together in a 10-year timeline, so that we can hopefully get our schools back to a position where they are becoming that next generation of Okaloosa schools we're looking for.
All right. Then we'll have Rita come up and talk a little bit about the cash flow.
Okay, Tuesday I was able to send our projected cash flow. It was a little slow because I wanted to get the most recent information that we could regarding sales tax and what the EDR was projecting. And so as you remember, when we started, it was about $23 million a year, which would be $230 million for 10 years. So I was able to get the most updated information on last Thursday. And so based on that information, the estimated revenue now will be $20.5 million a year. Now, what I would say to you is that we project that amount for the first 2 years, and then we build in an increase factor because we will get on the other side of the pandemic and COVID. And historically, my experience has been that you collect much more than what is projected, or not much more, but you collect a significant amount more than what's projected. So based on that cash projection that I've provided, we will still be at $227 million, but as you know, probably just the first year or two is actually what you're going to be working with, and the other years you'll revise as you go and those estimates change. So with that being said, the projections laid out by fiscal year. So for this fiscal year, you will collect 4 months worth of revenue. Okay, you'll have 6 months worth of revenue. You can estimate 4 months worth of revenue that you will actually collect. They start collecting on January the 1st. So January the 31st, you have the sales tax collection for that month, but then February they process, and so you don't get it until January. So you kind of got a 2-month lag between what you are entitled to and what you actually collect. Okay, and so then now at this point we will pair that, as Steve said, with the projects that were proposed for the sales tax initiative, and so you'll take into account what you can pay as you go, what you want to pledge to accelerate some of the other projects that are significant, like constructions of buildings or that kind of stuff, and then you've also got to factor in when those projects can be done, because as we all know, sometimes some of the school projects you can't do it, when school's going on. So we'll have to take that into consideration and pair that in whatever time period it all works out. But we're moving, and like Steve said, by January, excuse me, we should be able to give you a cash flow and a project alignment for each one of the years moving out. And then, of course, if you collect more, you just move your projects up. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Chambers?
I'm just going to briefly mention these two because I know that two board members will say something. So I'm just going to say, go Gators and go Eagles. So that's all I'm going to say there because I know that there'll be
'Cause it's
more.
coming.
There'll be more to come on that. And then lastly, Larry Klein and his wife, significant donation to Pryor, which I think is fantastic, which is really going to help those students in the construction program. So just really appreciate him and others in those initiatives.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Okay, so now we'll move down to Section 15, board members, announcements, and requests for information. And before we get to 15.1, I would just like to offer my sincere apology to the school board regarding item 15.1. I thought for sure that we had already voted on this earlier in the year, but it was actually for the advocacy position with the Florida School Board Association. So I humbly ask for your forgiveness on this, but we now have to make a designation of school board member to serve as the board's trustee to the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust, which I currently serve on, and I will be honored to serve again, just because FSBIT likes to keep the continuity with the people that are on there, and I really have a passion for what their mission is as far as workers' comp, educating, risk management and all. So I would be honored to serve again, but that would be up to y'all on Monday night. So, but I do ask for your sincere.
I'll make the motion to nominate Mr. Bryant to again serve.
Okay, and I would appreciate that, but we have to wait till Monday.
That's right, thank you.
Okay, so with that.
But let's just say you can expect that nomination.
Thank you, Dr. White. Okay, so we'll move down to school board members' announcements and requests for information, and I'll start with the Honorable Mrs. Gardner.
Okay. This is my first in-person meeting, and I am so excited to be back working with this board. And it's been so rewarding to sit here and listen to, in spite of COVID and these difficult times that we're having right now, just to hear that the Okaloosa employees, all of the employees, are working around it and doing such outstanding work, and it's all about our students and our student success, and listening to Sheila Lightborn right there about the grant that's due, or the DOE that's due December the 15th, and I think about my principal's days that, I mean, we're right here trying to keep the roof on because it's the holidays, and the last thing, our teachers and maybe our students and the principals are, you know, that's just a lot of, that's a big load to put on everybody at that time. But I'm just so proud to be, again, just a small piece of this, and just to see that our employees are doing above and beyond anything for the success of our students. And I just know that our parents should feel very comfortable in knowing that what our staff, our school employees are doing for this success. And it's just rewarding to be here. I sit and look at the sign, and I'm just glad to be back and just to be a little small part of this.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Dr. White, I'll go to you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just to appreciate the fact that the superintendent recognized our outstanding administrators for the year, and there are just so many, and this is the way that we'll recognize these for this year. I'd also like to point out that if folks would like to know more about them, certainly on OkaloosaSchools.com, there is some information there about these wonderful employees. And in addition to that, there's also information there I would call the public's attention to regarding an upcoming meeting for establishing the new school year calendars. And we've had some of those meetings in the past, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that information is there on OkaloosaSchools.com. Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
And Dr. White, I'd like to follow up on that, on the calendar, just so board members know, this has been notified as a public meeting, so we can all meet together for that meeting if you so choose. So it's open to all of us. It has been announced. So thank you, Dr. White. All right, who wants to?
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Who wants to go first? Ms. Ivanchek, I'll let you go first.
Thank you. First of all, welcome, Ms. Gardner. It's a pleasure and honor to be sitting by you on the board, and we're glad to have you. So I knew that all of you would be willing to go along with a cheer with me today. So I got the megaphone from my Baker cheerleaders and the pom-poms, like, y'all gonna do it right if I go give me a B and all that?
Here, give me a
Absolutely.
pom-pom, I'll help.
So,
Absolutely.
you know,
They're the
so
same
let's go ahead
colors.
and do, let's just do it. So, give me a B.
B.
Give me an A.
A.
Give me a K.
K.
Give me an E.
E.
Give me an R.
R.
Go Baker.
Go Baker.
Thank you so much. We're excited. Appreciate your cooperation with that. Yes, everybody knows how thrilled I am about the Baker Gators and how much I support them. This is an exciting time as the The Gators will be making their 3rd out of 4 years appearance in the state playoffs. That's just unprecedented, and we've used that word a lot, but it's there. They're going to be heading down to Tallahassee, and one advantage this year, if the public doesn't know, is that the Florida High School Athletic Association made the great choice to move all those playoff games to Doak Campbell Stadium on the campus of Florida State University. That's a great advantage to us, because anytime we can shift some things west, it's always an advantage for our students who typically have to travel a pretty good distance. So come the 17th, with the Baker Gators being a 1A school, they will start it off that evening, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, in Doak Campbell Stadium as they take on a school called Hawthorne for the state championship. This senior team playing this year, they have an amassed record of 51 wins and 4 losses, and that's including all their playoff things. So I am just thrilled for Coach Brunson and his team. In a year where we started off spring practice, we didn't even know we could do it, and it was changed, and what sports we're going to do as far as competition, it shows you the resilience of our students, for one thing, and how they want to win, and also, of course, the winning tradition up there at Baker, and they just keep doing it. So I'm glad to end this year on this. So, don't want to jinx them, but even getting this far is really saying, there you go, 2020. You couldn't stop us. We're going to do it. And I'm just thrilled. I want to thank Mr. Chambers and Mr. Horton and others who, people have to imagine that taking a program on the road with students and keeping them safe and all the things you have to organize takes some financial backing, all those things. It's not cheap to put kids on charter buses and move them, but I appreciate the district support and already coming through for the Baker Gators. And so on Monday night, I should be able to tell you, since they're not playing till the 17th, how you go about getting a ticket or being able to watch the Gators play virtually. I'll have that information. So appreciate you indulging me and letting me cheer on my Gators, because I certainly am proud of them and just thrilled that they're having this opportunity. What a great experience for our young people. All right, thank you.
So, Ms. Vanchek, I will let you know that I actually bought 2 tickets last night, and you have to go to FHSAA to purchase your tickets. That's
Right, all online.
Right, so, but I was able to get 2 tickets, so me and my son will be there.
And I know you're
next
cheering
Thursday.
on your student
Number
you
two,
mentor.
number
Yeah.
2, Caleb Wagner, scored a touchdown the other night. Not that word.
He is a star for sure, and they have a lot of stars on that team.
Yes, they
and
do.
Very impressive game last Friday, 41-7. So they
Yes.
clinched it very well. So
All right, so the Honorable Dr. Kelly.
Woo, I don't know if I can keep up with this event. I will say that I did cheer, and I sponsored cheerleaders for many years. I can still do a split. I'm not quite sure about that back handspring, but I can still do it. So, but I could say go N, go H, go S, go NHS.
There you go.
But I'm just so happy and proud of them. But when you think about an organization like a football team, not just the players and the coaches, but you have the band and the winter guard, the color guard, all the parent support, everybody that's involved, and certainly at Baker as well. But it's a huge machine, and you try to get all of those people together. You don't even have to in a situation like this, because they amalgamate together around their team. And it certainly serves to continue to unify a district and certainly a community like Niceville. But I will say about Baker, too, I'm so proud of them as well. I have a personal connection to their coaches as well. I actually taught Polly Brunson and her brother back in the day, and they were wonderful, wonderful students. So congratulate the Bakers, the Baker team and football coaches and those fans and supporters as well. But regarding the Eagles, because that's what I'm here about today, the Eagles, we all certainly recognize the coaching staff and the principal there, and I have personal connections with them as well. But I just want to say that when you go in that school and you see Mr. Morello, you see their cheerleader. He is their cheerleader. But I want to give a shout out to some other people in that organization, if you'll indulge me just a minute. So their bookkeeper, Dewana Neindorf, was my bookkeeper at Destin Middle School. When you go in there and you ask for a pom-pom, and I'll just have to say that back in my day, the pom-poms were half my body size, and I thought these were like the little dollar ones you buy as a supporter, but these are now the thing. So, you know, they turn me on to what it really is in today's world. So thank you to the cheerleader sponsor and Dewana for getting these for me, and Mr. Morello for getting me some shirts. But also, when you talk about a community, I have to add a shout out to the mayor of Niceville, Dan Hinkle, and the city manager, Lanny Corbin, who are close personal friends of mine, for going above and beyond. We already had taken our district portable bleachers out there so that they could add to capacity and socially distance, as the superintendent and I talked about. But thank you to those two individuals at Niceville, the city of Niceville, for also bringing out their two newer sets of portable bleachers so that we can socially distance. So if you haven't already, it might be too late, but you might try to snag a ticket today. But I don't think after today there'll be any more ticket sales for Niceville's game. So again, congratulations to the Eagles. But I do also want to say something about another school in my district, Ruckle Middle School. So I can't say enough about that organization as well. The Rams do an awful lot to make us proud as well. And so I congratulate Ruckle Middle School for winning the 2021 Middle School, Okaloosa Middle School Athletic Conference Football Championship. And it's the first time for Ruckle in about 3 decades. So we have to congratulate our Ruckle Rams as well. So I just couldn't be happier or more proud of our local teams, all of our district, but certainly the teams that I represent as well. They're just doing phenomenally. And then I have to say just a snippet for Team Okaloosa, because as the superintendent and I have talked several times now, we are all about Team Okaloosa, and I too am just so proud of what we've done as a district through and around COVID, because as different pieces of the district puzzle today have spoken about the things that we've had to navigate around, and I know that other districts around the state and around the nation are doing the same, but I really don't think anybody does it like Team Okaloosa. And just for the public, I'll just say that when you think about a district having to go to all different modalities, online, in person, hybrid, and these teachers who are going in person, online, or hybrid, it is an extreme burden, not just in the time for planning and actually executing that, but emotionally, because our teachers are parents too. And so an emotional strain on all of the staff. And when you talk about how it's impacted, and we talked about this the other day, the COVID analysis in the end, the total impact will have been to transportation, because now you have students who are not being transported, to food service, because now you have students who are not taking advantage of school nutrition services, even though we provided above and beyond for school breakfast and lunches, because that was the right thing to do, and we did that. And you have students who positions are being moved around, and as we lose students or they come back or they're shifted around, what an awesome responsibility to keep up with this. And then you don't even think about the materials and resources that have to be planned for, whether they are online resources or whether they are actual physical resources. So when you think about all the tremendous impact that COVID, one pandemic, has done to us systemically, nothing in the 40 years I've worked in our school district and in other school districts as well has impacted a system so magnanimously. But how magnanimously, supremely, has our staff stepped up to cope? And I just can't say enough about that. So thank you for your leadership and the leadership at the school level and at the district level, and certainly in the laps of our teachers for taking care of us through this. That's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
All right. So my final comments, I too would like to thank the superintendent and his staff for all that they've done over the last year pretty much with the COVID response. I feel like, we've been as transparent as we possibly can and open with the public, but, because of your leadership and your staff. It has made the situation, I think, a lot more fluid for people to understand what's going on. So I do echo that. I appreciate your leadership. I also want to thank Dr. White for being on the committee for the principal and assistant principal committee. I think y'all did a great job, and 4 deserving people. And of course, I'll have to give an extra shout out to the big dog, Dexter Day. So, he gets a pass, though. He won't be on the committee next year because he's retiring at the end of the year, so he won't have to be on the committee next year. But shout out to all 4 of them. Great leaders, and we're very blessed to have them and all of our administrative leaders in the school. So, for that. Last week, Ms. Ivanchek and myself, Ms. Gardner, and Dr. Kelly, we attended the FSBA virtual conference. And I just have to give a shout out to Ms. Ivanchek because she was trying so hard. I mean, at first
I got robbed, okay? Let's just get it out there.
There was an opportunity for 3 scholarships. And on the first day, Ms. Ivanchek and I were kind of going back and forth, but eventually she just blew me out of the water, and, I kind of watched her go, and for the longest time, she was in the top 3, and then I go back and look, and she's number 4. So.
I know, I was robbed, I'm telling y'all. It's a story, I won't go there, but I tried.
But I just wanted to let the FSBA know how much we appreciated the information. Virtual conferences are definitely different. But I will say that it was very enjoyable.
It was.
And went by
very good
pretty
stuff.
fast. We're sitting in front of a computer all day, and it
2
went by.
days, but it was good.
Went by really quick. And then also, our condolences go out to our Walker Elementary family. As y'all might know, the day after Thanksgiving, there was a bad accident on Highway 85 south of Crestview in which 6 people died. One of those was a student at Walker Elementary, Christopher Pine. Our prayers go out to his family. There is a memorial service tomorrow in Crestview at Whitehurst Powell Funeral Home beginning at 12:30, and then his burial will be at 2 o'clock at the Live Oak Park Cemetery. So our hearts go out to the Walker family and to the Christopher Pine family. So, all right. We got Section 16, public comment. Members of the public desiring to address the school board. This is the 2-minute version of public comment. And we do have public hearing on Monday night. So 17.1 will be public hearing for adoption of a revised job description for specialist equity coordinator. And then 17.2, public hearing for adoption of a revised job description for chief officer finance. We'll go around the room. Patrick, you have anything, sir? Dr. Hale, Ms. Scallon, Ms. Appleberg. Ms. Appleberg, come to the front.
Hello, board members. I just kind of wanted to let you know, as we're talking about the COVID and talking about all the things that teachers are having to do and, manipulate and the burden that's being put on them, we're becoming more and more aware that we do have some teachers that are having some serious complications from COVID. It's getting kind of grim for some of them, so I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that we are having some of our teachers to hopefully keep in our thoughts and prayers during this time because they are having some pretty significant health complications at this point. So I just kind of wanted to let you guys be aware of that, and that way we can kind of keep everybody in their thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and along that line, we did lose a former media specialist yesterday to COVID. So condolences to their family too.
Yes.
And also the family that I spoke about probably a month ago, who lost their daughter who was a nurse. And they had lost about 4 members of that family. They lost their grandfather last night. So condolences to the Smith, Crawford, Major, Simmons family. They've had many of their family have been retired, and I think we still have 1 member of their family working in our school system. So such a major loss.
All right, Ms. Lightbourne. Mr. Horton.
And I just wanted to say on that note, so I have spoken with Dr. Kelly, spoken with Ms. Appleberg, spoken with Dr. Hale. So we are formulating a survey that will go out to our employees, want to get their feedback, some suggestions that they may have. Definitely, this is not easy. It's not easy on anybody, especially when you have a teacher who might be sitting there with 22 kids in a class one day, 8 the next, or 25 and then 4. It's not easy. And then knowing that there's a state assessment that's coming, we've tried to take some of the pressure off of that, but they know there's a state assessment coming. They know that they want to do well because this is why they got an education, to teach kids. It's different. Those online, it's different. Miss Appleberg's one of them who's online, and now you go from a cohesive group, a team, to now you're at your house teaching your heart out. Front office staff, it's different. Principals are COVID tracers, having to contact families, this new plan. For some, it could be something that is almost pushes you over the edge just a little bit or a lot of it. So it's a big deal. So I think surveying, which I think was a great idea, and getting that out to our teachers and our staff, it'll give us some good information. If we can make some adjustments in the second semester where we can, we'll look at that. But it's true, it's difficult. But on the positive side, I wouldn't want to go through this with anyone else other than our people. So just wanted to say that.
All right, well, this meeting's adjourned.
All right.